Hi, I'm Jenny Rosenkrantz with the University of Maryland Extension, and here on Delmarva Gardens, it is April, and we get to share all the beautiful spring beauties with you that bloom in April. Now, because this is early spring, sometimes you have a calm day, sometimes you have a windy day, and today's really windy, but don't let that stop you from joining us for Delmarva Gardens right here on PAC 14. You know, springtime is full of beautiful things that are blooming. I mean, some of them are very teeny tiny, but let's start out with the biggest thing that I can find that's in bloom right now. This gorgeous tree right here is a star magnolia, and it can be 25 feet high and at least 20 feet wide. I mean, you can hide in it, ha ha ha. But I want to show you the flowers. That's what I love the most about this. So here's a beautiful flower, and the petals are sort of a pinky white. They have, here I'll pull one right apart. See how that's got this beautiful pink stripe? This is for the pollinators, and the petals are just there to say, hey look, come here. And right in the center, right here, these are all the little, actually these are the flowers that are the fertile flowers. So right now it's a little bit windy, but we will still have a lot of pollinators here. What's really fun about this tree though, let's take a look over here. You have this one that's a really tight bud. And yet this one, look at that. The pink is starting to come up and it's really gorgeous. Come up a little bit higher up here and it's a little bit more intense. And as the day warms up, the flowers open up, which is really cool. Now, again, springtime, we're gonna have some nights it might get cold. And if that happens, a lot of these flowers will actually get frosted and they'll turn brown. They look a little bit like a toasted marshmallow. Kind of cool, but no. But that's why you have so many of these buds that are just teeny tiny, so that they know, okay, if this one, you know, if this one right here starts to bloom and then it gets frosted, well, this guy right here will be just fine. So it's nature's way of saying, I'm not putting all my cards on the table right now. Spring, you never know what's gonna happen. So let's go ahead and take a look at some small beauties. Some of the little spring beauties that we have are like these species tulips. Aren't they gorgeous? Let me pick one because you know, sometimes you just have to pick a flower and I can share it with you guys. Notice how the petals are bright red. That again is for the pollinators. And on the inside, you have a little bit of these bright yellow things right here. That's the male part of the flower. Those are the anthers. And right in the very center, there's the female. And notice how in the center of the flower is bright yellow. Again, to say to the pollinators, come here, come all the way down here where it's bright yellow. So this is kind of neat. Now, the thing about tulips that I love is that they're here for a very short time. The thing about tulips that I'm so sad about is many varieties of tulips are only here for 1, 2, or 3 years. Now, I do have some tulips that bloom more mid-season for the tulips or even late season for the tulips. And I have some that actually have gone ahead and lasted for 30 years. So those are the ones that are what they call perennial tulips. They're mostly like the Dutch masters and the Darwin tulips. But this little species tulip is just adorable. And this one actually will last quite a while as long as, you know, it has a chance to. One of the things that they have to have is dry soil. So this is pretty dry in the summer, and that'll be good for them. One of the neat things about the teeny tiny flowers that we have, they come in all different colors, shapes, and sizes. So again, we have the bulbs. These are daffodils, but these are miniature daffodils. These are called tête-à-têtes, and they're one of the earliest spring blooming ones. They started blooming in February and March. And now more and more of them are actually in bloom, which is so cool. They're so teeny tiny. But if you have something that is this small as a little daffodil, they make wonderful spring arrangements. Very tiny, very petite, which kind of works with a lot of the spring beauties. The other spring beauty I have right here, this is candytuft. So this is a beautiful evergreen herbaceous perennial. It's been here all winter. It's been here for years actually. And it blooms this time in the early springtime. It's just now beginning to bloom. And the warmer the days get, the more it blooms. It's called candytuft because it's very fragrant, and the fragrance is very sweet. And later on in the day, we'll probably have a lot of bees and other pollinators there too. And then right in front, well, hello. A garden is never complete unless you have a puppy with you. Hello, sweetie. Hi, Lucy. Lucy, would you help me share? Come here, you can hold this one. Okay, there we go. So this right here is the flowers of a phlox. This is called the moss phlox. That's a common name. It's Phlox subulata. All the phloxes that we have are native perennials, which is wonderful. So I have a combination of natives and non-natives in my garden. I mix them together because we have not only native bees, but I also have honeybees that come here too. But I love these moss phlox because they have been blooming in January, February, March, and now here it is April, and they're just going, okay, more flowers. And how can you not love this? They come in these really pretty shades of pink, some of them a darker pink. They come in purples, pure blue, and gorgeous pure white. I tell you, hyacinths to me are the quintessential fragrance of spring. I mean, with this wind, all I can smell is these beautiful hyacinths. They are so fragrant. They come in all kinds of different colors. So here we have a combination of, there's a beautiful white one that's pure, pure white. And then this pink one right here is actually pink and white stripes, which is really kind of pretty. And then we have the soft blues. Aren't they lovely? They kind of look like a powder brush in a sense, but they're very, very sturdy. And these are also very long-lived, which is kind of nice. Here's one that's kind of a yellow color, and this one is actually a darker pink. So they come in all different colors, but the fragrance is all fabulous. Now, when you're handling these in the fall, when you plant these in the fall, one of the things you have to remember is that some things like the hyacinths, you can actually get kind of a skin rash if you're allergic to something like that. So I always suggest when you're planting hyacinths, always wear gloves when you're planting them. These bulbs, these spring beauties, they have to be planted in the fall. Now things like daffodils and hyacinths, you plant one and done, and they last for years and years and years. As a matter of fact, you can actually find old houses just by driving around the countryside, and you'll see a border of daffodils. And you go, what's that from? There had been a house, long gone now, but the outline is still there with the daffodils, and sometimes the hyacinths too. One of the new things that we have nowadays in the market, so we can go ahead and purchase them, are the hellebores, or the Lenten roses. And I love these. They have really awesome flowers. This bright white is actually not the flower, it's the bracts, and the real flowers are right here. What's neat about these though is that the bracts, after they get older, they just get a little darker colored. Some of them turn a dark purple, but here's the different type of flowers. You can have a white one, you can have a dark rich purple, and this is called the picotee one, which is the edges are purple and the petals are actually white. I just love all these different kinds. So they have all of these now. They used to be so difficult to find in the garden centers, but because of the chance of going ahead and use the tissue culture to grow them out, you can have one little plant like this and get hundreds or thousands of the same plant. So just go to the garden centers this time of year and see what they have. There's so many beautiful ones. Hello, sweetie. The other thing I wanted to share with you guys is one called Solomon seal. Right now, Solomon seal is still very much, basically still sleeping underground. But if you look here, you can see these bright red tips. So here's where the Solomon seal will be coming up soon. Now, Solomon seal gets to be about a foot high. It has a nice arching branch, and the foliage on this one is green with white. So this whole bed right here will be filled with this gorgeous green wave of green and white. In the early part of May, they'll have two little flowers beside each leaf, but they only last for a very short time, maybe 2 or 3 days. And then there's little berries, but because the native birds love them, they're zapped off really quickly. So sometimes you grow things for the flowers, like the Lenten rose, and sometimes you grow things for the foliage. Some daffodils have fabulous color. And if you're smart, when you plant them, you could label them where you've planted them. That way you know every year these are Las Vegas daffodils. I love these. Yes, these are the Las Vegas daffodils. One of the reasons why I bought them is that they're very big, they're early blooming, but they have these beautiful white petals here and this gorgeous lemon butter trumpet. This is the typical quintessential daffodil in my opinion, just absolutely beautiful. But I decided I had to share some other types of daffodils. So this type, it actually has a fragrance. I don't particularly like it, but this is really more of a jonquil where when you have one stem with lots and lots and lots of little flowers. So this is one type. And then this one is almost pure white. So the one that is pure white blooms a little bit later in the season, and that's called Mount Hood. And I'm not really sure which this one is, but it's very, very similar to Mount Hood because it has more of a cream trumpet instead of a white trumpet, but still pretty cool. Now this one is called King Alfred. This is the one that everybody used to plant for the biggest, most gorgeous yellow daffodils. So the petals are yellow and the trumpet is bright, bright yellow too. So he's absolutely gorgeous. They've got a whole bunch of new varieties now that actually are almost better than King Alfred, but he's still a good daffodil. I love him. Okay, so then these guys, let's see. These guys right here are the same, but one's open a little bit more. And these are what they call double petals, or what they call sometimes a split cup, because the trumpet has become multiple petals. Now these are probably not good for pollinators because they really have more petals than they have any of the stamens that would be the sexual parts of the flower, but they're still so pretty. So sometimes you have to have them. This one is sometimes called a butterfly daffodil. Here the trumpet has actually been split. I mentioned the split cup before, but this one is folded back so it gives you almost like a butterfly look to it. Really cool. Here's another two that are very, very similar, and the petals are pure white and the trumpet is almost a trumpet, but it's more curly and all. It's just different colors, different textures. And when you put them together as a flower arrangement, they're a lot of fun. This one here, yellow petals, but look at the trumpet, it's dark orange. So this really stands out. And it looks great in the nature and the landscape beds and all that, but it looks really good in a flower arrangement too. If you're gonna go something a little bit more petite, look at this little guy. So this is also a little daffodil. And now if it was a jonquil, it would have two petals, two flowers on the same stem. But this one has only got one, so it's still a daffodil. And here's another one where the trumpet is, instead of being a trumpet, it's got multiple petals. And whoops, sorry, the wind is a little bit strange. And there we go. Isn't that cool? Now the thing about daffodils, I don't know whether I mentioned it or not, but daffodils are poisonous. So the leaves are poisonous, the flowers are poisonous, the bulbs are poisonous. And I always make sure that I plant them where, like for instance, if I have a pet that might be interested in nibbling them, they probably wouldn't because they're very nasty tasting and smelling. Well, not the flowers, but the petals, the leaves. But I always try to make sure I have very few in an area, especially if I have a young puppy or something like that. But it doesn't usually, usually they learn or they smell and they go, I'm not gonna worry with that one. But if you're gonna make a flower arrangement with all these beautiful flowers and you put them in a bouquet with water and all, and you wanna add other flowers, the thing to do is put them in a bouquet of water and let them stand for 24 hours. Dump out the water, don't cut them again, but put them in the same container, fresh water, and then you can add the other foliage or the other flowers, maybe some tulips or something else. And that will do really, really well. If you add them before, the other plants just don't survive. I don't know why, but this is one of their ways of survival. And that's why daffodils have lasted for so long. The neatest thing about having a garden is you can have flowers that bloom early, mid, and late spring, early, mid, and late summer, early, mid, and late fall. So right now we have a plant here, you already saw the daffodils. This one right here is a type of peony, and peonies are just beginning to come up out of the ground if they're regular peonies, but this is a tree peony, so it's always been up. And this one, it needs a little bit of help and all in terms of pruning, because you should always do some pruning in the springtime, but I like to wait to see what's still alive. So this part right here is going to be a flower, and right down here, this is going to be a flower. And I just think that these are so amazing. These are grafted so that you have a beautiful flower on top. They actually bloom about 2 weeks earlier than the normal peonies that you have in the garden. Right now, the normal peonies in the garden, they're just beginning to come up, or some of them haven't even bothered to come up yet. So again, early, mid, and late spring, summer, and fall. Always fun, something fun to look for. The other thing I have down here too is really cool. I have a ground cover called periwinkle, and I keep it in a very small area. It only likes the shade, so as soon as it comes out in the full sun, it kind of goes, maybe not here. And this could be an invasive species, so you have to be sure to plant it in an area that it's not going to escape anywhere. And so this one is only going to be happy right here, in this one little teeny microcosm right here. So I enjoy the whole thing. Now sometimes when you plant things, I like to interplant. So these are little grape hyacinths, and I have them planted as little teeny tiny bulbs, but they're planted also in amongst some black-eyed Susans, which these leaves right here are black-eyed Susans, and some other plants that will come up, Asclepia tuberosa, which is also called butterfly weed, which hasn't even begun. So right now this is a little garden that needs a little bit of cleanup, but I will be honest, I left these little seed heads. This is from the coneflower, the purple coneflower, and these are from the black-eyed Susans. And I left the seed heads here because I wanted to give the birds, native birds, a chance to eat them. For the most part, there aren't any more seeds here. They picked them pretty clean. So this is a good time to go ahead and start thinking about cleaning up. The other thing you want to keep in mind, though, there's a lot of pollinators and also beneficial insects that will sometimes have their eggs or their cocoons in amongst the leaves. So I like to wait for some of these things to just, have a chance to have things warm up so that they'll hatch out before I go ahead and remove all of this. This is also a great time to have a lot of what they call winter annuals. And so here is a winter annual that it's a creeper. It has little blue flowers. I can get a much better picture later on. But this is a Veronica. And then over here, we have, this is called purple dead nettle. It's in the mint family, and right beside it is a type of wild geranium. So these are all what they call winter annuals. And I usually try to go ahead and keep them out of my planting bed, but I don't mind if they're in my lawn sometimes. So you have to make a balance. What would you like? I have a little pollinator meadow for the early pollinators, and other people would go, she needs to get rid of those weeds. It all depends on where you're coming from. This is a really cool tree, and you can see how it is starting to bud out. Look at this. You see all these little purple little specks here. These are going to be beautiful, beautiful flowers. So when this is in full bloom, this whole shrub will be covered with flowers. Now there's two different types of red buds, which is what this is. This is the Chinese red bud, which means it's only going to be a shrub. But I also have some redbud trees that are going to be absolutely gorgeous too. They're small trees and they're native trees. So it's nice to have native as well as non-natives because we have all kinds of pollinators. So this was not quite ready to share with pollinators, but I just had to show you. Sometimes you have to kind of take a look and see what's going on. And even though it's not in bloom right now, it's still pretty cool. Now sometimes things that are in bloom in the springtime can be shrubs. So this is the Oregon grape holly, and it is a native. And this thing actually started blooming in February, a little bit in February, but then it said, oh my goodness, it's cold. Remember how it was cold in February? Oh my goodness. And then in March it came out a little bit more, and now that it's in April, it's still blooming. So I love it. I think that it's really beautiful, bright yellow. The pollinators have already been around it. We've been here while the bees were looking at it and enjoying them. And when this finishes blooming, all these areas right here are going to go ahead and mature into grape-like berries, hence the term grape holly, because the foliage looks a little bit holly-like. And it's just a really neat tree. Sometimes it's nice to have an evergreen tree like this that blooms in the springtime because the evergreen will be good all winter long, giving you a little bit more texture and color in the garden. I'm going to share one more beautiful spring blooming shrub with you guys. It's the camellia. I love it. Let's go see them. Now camellias are obviously not native to the United States, but they're really, really beautiful. And once again, sometimes you have to make that balancing idea. Do you want all natives, or are you willing to go ahead and have a few that are not and just enjoy them because they're so beautiful? So this is a spring blooming camellia, and this particular one has gorgeous, gorgeous red flowers. I love these flowers. Look at, isn't that gorgeous? Very, very symmetrical. It's just so pretty. Against the dark green leaves, it's just so lovely. Now these leaves have been green all winter long, and you can see some of them are still absolutely beautiful. Here's one that's a little bit of winter injury right there. You can see how there's a little bit of darkness to it. And that happens, but it's just a gorgeous plant. Now sometimes these will actually get so frosted that the buds will not open up. So you know it's been a mild winter because look at all these wonderful buds that we have here. Aren't they fabulous? All those buds will give us beautiful flowers all through the springtime. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this little tour of the garden and all the cool things that come up in the springtime. Don't be afraid to plant some bulbs in the fall so that you'll have some spring beauties too. Thank you so much for joining Delmarva Gardens right here on PAC 14.